This video is brought to you by BTI Institute, a New Jersey leader in certification-based management training.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another Agile discussion group with the Project Management Institute of New Jersey. Today, we have Larry Solo, who's not only blending traditional project management, but is a great Agile enthusiast. And if you've been around for a while, you probably felt his presence. He comes with great curiosity and great insights as well. He's also been a great guest speaker at the recent symposium. Larry had raised his hand and said, hey, would you like me to share a few things? And we're initially going to tag team today, but we're just going to give the stage to Larry. Larry is also an organizational change consultant. He's a published author. He has worked with a multitude of clients. Some of them are fun, like Mattel, Lee Davidson, USA Today. And he's also presented at a number of conferences and organizations, such as SHRM, Project World, Project Summit, and IAF as well. So today, we're going to have Larry share a few things using PowerPoint and move to a tool of Miro. Larry, I'll give it to you, and you let us know if you want to take questions in the middle or have someone monitor the chats, however you prefer. So Larry, over to you, and I'll put myself on mute.
All right. Well, thank you all. And I'm going to go ahead and see if the toys work as they are supposed to. Let's start there. And that looks like the toy did work. So hopefully you are looking at a cover slide that says, hi, here's what we're going to talk about today. And it really is managing resistance. And try to frame it in a couple of different ways for everybody. A couple of just kind of guidelines, and really Nitin was talking to those. This is really designed to be interactive. Those of you familiar with Miro or Mural or Trello that we've used in Lean Coffees will be familiar with it. I'm going to hold it lightly and see how the technology works. My suspicion is the people on this call are more technically savvy than others that I might be working with. So we'll hold that lightly. But the idea is to give everybody a voice, albeit, a voice with your fingers and doing some data entry. And you'll see that that's kind of a part of how we actually manage resistance, is to get people to talk. To get them communicating. So with that said, let me kind of dive forward. Thank you, Nitin, for the introduction. I was not going to do this, but just for folks that might want the record for purposes of the recording, or if you'd like a copy of this deck, we can figure out how to get that to you. So just know that that's here. And this is actually, for me, a lot more fun. So what I'd like you to do, and some of you did it kind of just in the intros, but it kind of gets your fingers working. Just if you would put your name, what you consider to be your title, your role, your job, how you would define yourself in this context, and where you do it. The consultant, if you're internal, and I'm going to look down and watch the chat and invite all of you to do the same thing. And let's just see who's here. So ready, set, go. Excellent. Love that. So you have project managers, product managers, kind of everywhere from agile to, I'm guessing, kind of more traditional, PMP-like type stuff. Healthcare is here, insurance is here. Folks that are in transition, that are retired. And I think that's great. I'm excited to see this kind of diversity in the folks, because one of my sneaky things is I am really lazy. And this is going to give all of us a chance to learn from each other. So you'll do as much of that as I will, if this works the way I hope it will. All right, so I'm going to wait just another minute or so to let the rest of folks kind of get their names on. And this is being recorded. I think the chat will also probably be made available upon request from John if you need it. So this
No,
is
the chat won't be there, Larry.
Oh, it won't. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
but
never
the
mind.
recording will be.
I was just kidding. And by the way, if you do have questions, pretty please do ask them. I think, as we go along, again, I'm hoping this will almost be more like a conversation than a presentation. And John or Nitin, thank you for being a second set of eyes on the chat, as we move on through. Ooh, Agile Catalyst. I love that. Okay, so diverse in lots of different ways, and I think I love that. And one of the nice things is about, as we think about change and think about resistance to change, it's an equal opportunity kind of concept, and an equal opportunity. It doesn't matter old, young, what place you're in. I've worked, as you can see in the intros, in a fairly wide variety. And this notion of change is a thing, and resistance to change. So here's where I'd like to start, and here's where the experiment will start, which is, what words come to mind when you hear the word resistance? If you would look in the chat, there is a link to a Miro board. And if the heavens are kind, and I don't promise that they are, this is one of those experiments, when you click on it, it should open to something that is going to look, let me stop sharing that one thing and start sharing another. Look like this, and I see people there. That, you have no idea. It actually just made my whole day right now. Everything else is a bonus. We have people in here that can play. Some of you are, if you're more or not familiar, I'm just going to ask you all to stop moving for a second, if you can. And the way that this is going to work is you take your cursor, click on any one of the colored dots, and come on, you hold down the shift key and move it someplace, and then you can double click in it and start typing, whatever kind of first word or thought or concept comes into mind when you hear the word resistance. So ready, set, go. Take all the time you need in the next minute. Color doesn't matter. Where you are within this board actually doesn't matter. So just, oh, hey, man, here you go. Got some resistance. I can't do this. Yeah, that's pretty common one. You just double click on the box. You may have to hit the shift key to hold it and move it away from its little post-it pad. Why change? Huge. Change again. Oh, yeah. There's a thing that actually got me fired from a client because I used the expression bohica, bend over, here it comes again. And they were too politically correct. They did not appreciate that, which was unfortunate. There you go. Lack of buy-in. Oh, we need approvals. Yeah, just, the things that we know how to say that are guaranteed to put a halt or slow down progress. And it's almost like people have a dictionary of those that they pull out as they need to. Oh, yeah, objections. Hey, the first thing we look at is, this is not good for me. You can tout all the lovely things that you want to say, all the advantages to, but at the end of the day, it's what is the impact on me? And that is extremely real. what's in it for me, another place, you know, kind of that same thing. Lack of buy-in, desire for clarity. Sure, like, oh, that's nice. What do you really mean? Afraid. Yeah, fear. I mean, it's the unknown. People who are just stubborn. You know, I've been here for 30 years. I invented that process. I'll be darned if I'm gonna have some young whippersnapper. You know, so there's a bunch of that. At Allied Signal, I was part of a team that had to help people who were doing manual drafting move to computer-aided design. And it was the most amazing case study of resistance I'd ever seen up to that point in my career. Long story short, 7 out of our 10 drafters were not there 6 months later, either because they left on their own or because they were so disruptive that they had to be let go. All right, so I think you get it. You can please pause for now. And I'm going to stop sharing this one and bounce back to the PowerPoint deck for the moment. Or if you're really having fun, keep going. Let's see, where am I? I want to be here. That key, that key, that key. All right, slideshow from current slide. Okay, we're back. So want to give you a couple of images that may help to start to frame or reframe this concept of resistance. One is, if you think about rubber bands, if you can imagine a rubber band just dangling limp from my fingers, how much energy is there for change right now? As project managers, I mean, that's our work, right? As agilists, regardless of our role, we're not we're typically not engaged for people to not move, for a technology to not be implemented, for a process to not be improved. That's all change. So when the rubber band is limp, it's got no energy to it. So I think our job is to create resistance, energy. That's the thing that's going to allow the movement to happen. The more we pull, the more energy there can be, and the more stress. And if we're not careful, we do it one more stretch, and now they snap. And that snapping of the rubber bands is really traumatic from a system perspective, a people perspective, right? So not a good thing. The image on your right is a Chinese finger puzzle, I think they call it. And what happens is it's just this little typically fabric or kind of papery, woven papery thing. And 2 different people put your finger in each end of the Chinese puzzle. And the idea is, how do you get your finger out? And the way that it's constructed, the tighter you pull, the harder you pull, the tighter it gets. So the trick to managing that resistance is not to be adversarial, because that's what makes it tight. The trick is to collaborate, to understand the situation for what it is, because it's only when you relieve the tension on the puzzle that the resistance dissipates and that you achieve your objective. So as project managers, as agilists, as people trying to make change happen, I just offer you these 2 things just as an image to kind of keep in your head. Are you pulling the finger tighter? Are we making it worse by labeling it as resistance and tugging at them to get them to come to our way of thinking? And then how tight are we pulling the rubber bands? Is it productive creating energy for change? Because sometimes as project managers, we need to pull it tighter. We need to create the tension. We need to confront some people. And then when do we need to back off? When are we coming into maybe a system where those rubber bands, the people right before us, I'd snap them? And we walk into a system and it's just chaotic. It's because of some past trauma that is creating resistance in the current moment. So let me just pause there, let that sink for a second. If you have any questions or any thoughts about that, please put them in the chat for right now. And John or Nitin, if you would kind of keep an eyeball out and let me know if anything kind of surfaces there. Oh, wait, here we go. Okay. So I see a couple of, one or two comments that basically seem supportive. So we'll just kind of roll with that one and keep on our story here. So we've actually started to answer this in some of the answers from the prior mural, but I'm going to go back to that screen and then really ask you to think about what are some of the reasons then that people resist. So let me stop sharing, go to the other window, over here, scroll over a little bit to here. Okay, same kind of thing, grab a Post-it note and just start from anywhere around where you see screen real estate. Why do people resist? They're afraid of it. It will cost me my job. Who moved my cheese? I love that. And for anyone who hasn't read that book, it is a quick, easy, I think really compelling message about change. Again, several overlapping things which make total sense. Fear of the unknown. And fear is showing up big time if we were to do a word cloud. And it makes sense. It's draining. Great point. It is, by the way, research says that change is more work. It consumes, one research thing that I saw from, I don't know, several years ago now, 17% more physical energy is expended when you're having to address something new. It fires up more brain cells, it utilizes more oxygen, and it creates more cortisol, and your body works harder when things are new. So it's like, man, this is exhausting. It physiologically is. Lack of understanding for what the change, for not only for what the change will do for them, but actually what it is. So yeah, it's what we're going to change. We're going to, oh yeah, we're going to do a new process starting tomorrow. What process? Why? Are all, totally normal things. Loss of control, huge, right? Not my job, a classic one. That's not invented here. Kind of is a first cousin. I helped create this. Again, I think really, really important. I love this one too. I'm comfortable with this way. Is it perfect? No, but it's the devil I know. It's the bird in the hand, where rather than two in the bush, that host of expressions that show up that really speak to people's, kind of thoughts and feelings about this stuff. Just coming over here a little bit again, lack of trust. So it's not even so much sometimes the change itself, it's who's driving it. There were, and it's so if Sally says, we're going to do this, Sally has proven over time to be a person of her word, that she listens and takes our feelings into account, and that she's competent and confident in the thing that she's asking us to do. By the way, my 3 definitions, operational definitions of trust. And then when Fred says the same thing, Fred has been full of crap every single time he's ever done something. All of his changes have failed. And it's all about Fred. It just, the couple of times I tried to help him, he blew me off. They were both asking us to make the same change, and yet the reactions to it are dramatically different. Oh, I like this one. Life was good before. The good old days, right? Then back when it was a simpler world. Well, again, kind of similar. It's working now. Don't fix it if it ain't broke. And at least for me, it ain't broke. Hey, it works just fine. All right, so take one more minute. And, for those of you, depending on your screen and how you have it configured, please do take a minute to read the other ones. And then I'm going to switch back and ask you to compare some of the things that you have here with a list that I've put together over some time. So I'm going to switch out of this one, switch back to this one. So let me give you a couple again, some models and some things that you may be familiar with, either from your project management or your Lean Six Sigma, background. One is to think about resistance in terms of a force field analysis. And if you remember that, there are the things that are you might call them the headwinds, the barriers, the obstacles, the things that are working against the change. And then there are the tailwinds, the benefits, the things that are in the environment that are supporting the change. And so we can use this in a way as an assessment, as a diagnostic, to kind of list the things in each side. At least as I've come to learn and understand the tool, some of you may see this and understand it differently. I'd be open to that. What we used to think in the old days is that if you could just put together a blue thing, a driving thing to offset the restraining force, that was good enough. And it turns out that the restraining forces are stickier. So the magic is not to put more benefits up. That's always nice. But the fact is, until we address the barriers, we are unlikely to fully recognize or realize the change. So as project managers, and this was one of my scar tissue hard learned things, I kept preaching, yes, it's hard, but this is going to be good, and this is going to be great, and this is going to be better, and people kept coming back to, yeah, but I don't know how to do it. Yeah, but it's going to get in the way of my promotion. Yeah, I hear all that crap, but so so again, so now here's my third thing I hope you'll kind of kill a few brain cells on as you leave, right? So we're thinking about rubber bands, we're thinking about finger puppets, and now we're thinking about, are we going to just try to sell them on the benefits of the change and recognize that may not be effective? So a strategy is we need to understand where the resistance is coming from and figure out how to address those things that are creating the resistance. Okay, I'm going to glance down at the chat. If there's anyone who has a question or a thought, or give it a thumbs up if that makes sense. I'd be really interested if anybody has a thumbs down because you think that's full of crap. I mean, I'd be open to a good argument. All right. Well, so far the thumbs are up. I'm gonna take that as good news. Thank you. So we continue. Here's some other reasons that, and just see how these calibrate with the ones that you've put up or the ones that your colleagues have put up in those post-it notes, right? We talked about fear of the unknown, loss of control or power, outside their comfort zone, the good old days. Hey, if it ain't broke, fear of failure. This one, I'm not, the second piece maybe is a nuance. I'm not sure, it might have been up there. I didn't jump out at me. Is I was masterful and known as the master of the old way. I'm going to look silly learning the new way. So if I'm really invested in being the expert, and all of a sudden you put me in this new tool, this new process, this new technology, this new software, this new pick it, I no longer have that same level of, I got this, I'm better than you, I'm expert. That was one of the things that got so much in the way when our master manual draftsmen were replaced by computer-aided design. All that 30 years of experience meant nothing to them when they couldn't figure out how to do a particular angle in the software. And they felt embarrassed by that. Again, we talked about this. New things mean more work. Literally, with psychophysiologically, as well as, hey, we have to do the current process while we're learning the new one. And this is one more. You know what? I get it, but you're not going to give me the time, the people, or the money I need to do it well. And so, sorry, don't be surprised that I don't love you. You just basically gave me more work without the tools to address it. And no time. We do better when we have a chance to kind of think it through, to sit with it. So I think the good news is, and not at all surprising, I've had some version of this slide for literally decades. These things are universal. They really don't change and haven't changed since I started into this work of trying to help people and projects, move forward. So in addition to force field analysis, let me offer you a couple of mental models that may also be tools that I hope you kind of put in your holster and bring along with you into your work. One is neurophysiology. We are hardwired to look for things that are dangerous to us. We see those more clearly. Our brain alerts to those more strongly than a benefit. So if your favorite dessert is a chocolate cake over here and there's a fire over here, guess what? No contest, right? We're going to go and alert to the things that cause us potential pain. It is a survival thing back from caveman days. It is hardwired deep in our amygdala, reptilian brains. And when those things trigger, it shuts down our prefrontal cortex, our higher thinking centers. So, you know, when people get resistant, especially when they're first encountering a new change or something gets hard, saying, look, let's think it through. There's actually some physiological reasons that they don't and can't do that as well as they can when they're in a different kind of resourceful state. Oop, come back. Here's another one. I love this model. Mager Pipe were people who were education consultants back in the 70s. And they were trying to figure out why some students were more successful than others. And they came up with these 4 things as kind of root causes. And so the first one is people will resist change if they're not capable of doing it. I'm 5'9.5", and if you, and you know, in my old enough to have a you know, social security card and all that good stuff. If you ask me to dunk a basketball on a regulation sized basket, you can ask me, beg me, borrow me, threaten me, incent me, all you want. It's just not in my physiology. So are we asking people to do things, and now let's change it out of physical. Hey, you need to be able to use this new applied piece of software. You need to be able to think through this kind of if-then set of logic gates. You need to be able to do this level of contingency planning, this level of, and there are people that just, it's not in their brain. It may not be in, they don't have enough dexterity to do data entry at 40 words a minute, whatever those things might be. The second one is actually a category of training. You shouldn't be surprised that I resist it if you're asking me to do a thing I don't know how to do, right? So that one was easy. But what they discovered, which I actually think is more interesting maybe for us in the work that we do, is the other variations of training are that you were trained incorrectly. So they learned a bad habit from somebody else. And depending on who and what and some other things, unlearning before you can relearn new is incredibly difficult. They learned it, they might have learned it properly, but it's rusty. There is, Ebbinghaus and a bunch of other people have forgetting curves, and you literally lose 50% of something new if all you do is hear it once within a week. And how many instructions do we give people? And then they go back to their day work. And how often are we reinforcing the new messages, the new behaviors, the new skills, giving them learning labs, giving them the opportunity to try it, giving them the opportunity to safely ask what might feel like is an embarrassing question? The client that I'm working with right now, I literally this afternoon had the conversation that they want to have people do all of their training, virtual video-led training modules today. And then 3 to 4 weeks from now, they want them to go to instructor-led training to polish it off. And 3 different people have said, nope, they'll have to take all of those videos again, ideally within 24 hours of the time of the instructor-led training. So what is the gap that you have in the work that you're trying to help your projects accomplish between learning and putting that learning into practice? The third one, and it was on the other side, right? Lack of resources, is you shouldn't expect me to do it if I don't have the skills, I don't have the RAM in my computer, I don't have a big enough monitor to see the text, if I don't have the money, if I don't have the manpower, staffing, whatever. And then finally, the other one, the last one, misaligned consequences. And David Kerr, who is the chief learning officer for General Electric, has one of the classic articles in all of Harvard Business Review saying it's the folly of expecting A when you measure B. I mean, just think about, okay, so here's the thing. We are going to tell people and we're going to put them in and we're going to say we're going to be a team. But what we measure is individual performance. How do you think that's going to work? Especially if I'm one of those folks that goes, oh, you know what? If I do less work, Joe is gonna, who cares a lot about this stuff, he'll do his work, but he's gonna do some of mine as well because he doesn't want the project to fail. So who wins? I win. I get to do less work and have them cover up for me because they care more. Who loses? The person who's doing more work. I know by the people doing more work, they're gonna like motivate the people from the bottom, and it's the rubber band, right? They're gonna pull those people up next to them. They're gonna motivate them. They're gonna get excited. Except the research doesn't show that that's true. It's actually the opposite. After I finish covering for you a few times and nothing bad happens to you, you're getting the same kinds of measures and this, it's yay team. It's like, why am I working so hard? And it turns out top performers tend to degrade rather than the bottom performers improve. So project managers, agile, Scrum, whatever, Scrum Master, RT, whatever we are, think about Mager Pipe as a diagnostic tool for when you're not getting what you expect, for when you're feeling, hey, there's resistance here. What is going on? Why are they fighting me? It makes so much sense. This model may give you a way in to that conversation, and that's really what my hope is to do for you this evening. So let me pause here for a second. Questions, comments, anything, thumbs up, thumbs down, question or comment in the chat. And I'm going to look down and look at my chat box and see if there's anything there. Brian, good point. Yep, capable. That's the not able. One of the other things, in fact, in the same conversation that I was telling you about is, well, we're going to let them watch the video. We can't give them access to the platform yet, but this way, when they get access, they'll know how to do it. That's like saying, here's a book on how to swim. Read it. I'm going to give you a quiz to make sure that you can answer the questions in the book. Now I'm going to throw you in the deep water in the pool. How many of you think that's going to work well? Right? There's the stuff in your head, but then there is the experience of it, the practice of it, the application of it. And so as we're trying to help manage our projects and the people associated who will make those projects successful, can we maybe help them and therefore help the project by thinking through these kinds of things with them? So, competing commitments. It would be great to do what you just said, Larry, but if I do, it comes at a cost. Think about this as the opportunity cost of the change. So, yeah, I could take the time to learn that new thing. I could take the book home, but you know what? That means I don't get to spend time with my kids. And they really are in a place right now where they need me to spend the time. Do I want it that bad? I'd really like to be promoted to a manager, but that would mean I couldn't be friends the same way I am now with my colleagues. So yeah, I want to get ahead, but boy, I hate to break up this peer network that is so powerful and valuable to me. So what are people giving up to make your change? What else might be going on that's competing for their time, attention, and resources? Okay, drum roll, please. In addition to rubber bands, finger puzzles, whatever those are called, there is a better name for that. I may figure it out at some point. Force field analysis. Here you go, drum roll, please. It's not resistance. It's feedback. Once you get this, this is your customer talking to you. They're telling you very clearly, if you're lucky enough for them to articulate it. Here's my problem. Just look at the things on the slide. Is there a single one of those that's not real or legitimate? It might not be the way you think about it, but it's them, and it's the way they think about it. So rather than get into finger puppet, they're the enemy, we're gonna fight them through it, we're gonna talk them out of it, we're gonna sell them, we're gonna beat them with a stick until they comply. It's like, oh, I can stop talking and listen. And once I start listening, I start to see which of the things on the slide that you're looking at right now, or what combination of them might be contributing. Because here's some of the best news. I'm not sure if I have this in the right slide or not. Probably not. So never mind, I'll just leave it. I'll just talk to it. Every single one of these things can be addressed, right? With some care and some feeding and some awareness, it can be at least recognized and acknowledged. And in a lot of cases, that's good enough. Look, John, I know you created this process 25 years ago, and I appreciate how much benefit that it's given to our organization. You were a pioneer in driving that then. I'm hoping that you could help bring that same sense of energy to helping us drive this new way. Now, is that guaranteed to work? Hell, who knows? But at least John knows that somebody is giving him credit for all of that hard work and sacrifice and ownership that he's put into the existing process. Okay. So here's just some frameworks, if you want to think about them. And we've been talking around them, but I wanted to make sure you could see them in print. The first one is people, each of us, not they, us, act in ways that make sense to us, given our history, our beliefs, our context, and the data we choose to pay attention to. Right? I have my puppies in the back corners. Other people have talked about theirs. But if you were bitten by a dog and still have the scars to prove it, when somebody says, "Hi, dog," right, you're going to have a very, very, very different impression and different set of behaviors that make perfect sense to you. Now, as a dog lover, I may be scratching my head saying, why aren't you coming over and petting my puppy? She's the friendliest puppy on the planet. She's actually in training to be a service dog, and you're running away? So just before we jump to judgment, what might their story be? What would their experience have been so that their behavior makes sense in this context? So it's intended to get us curious, to get us to stop talking and selling and to start listening. Again, different people, some move towards goals, some move away from pain. So for us, what's the right answer? Have messaging in all those quadrants, because you can know for sure, and it's certainly not one size fits all when you're trying to motivate your project team, when you're trying to motivate your end users. It's all right. So let's understand that that's just, it just is. I wish it were as easy as I'm going to give you so much data that you're going to have no choice but to change. Goodness, that if that were true, we'd all exercise, nobody would eat sugar, there'd be no smoking, no drinking, no drugs, and basically no fun. So that's to just say because my data says so. And there's an interesting other conversation I won't get into tonight, but we may, as an organization and as a profession, need to think about AI in this context of this bullet right here. But where it does show up is with an experience. Experiences most often and most efficiently developed through a story. So I just shared my little story with you about my 30-year computer-aided, my 30-year-old drafters who had to change to computer-aided design. Even if you weren't part of my story, even if you're not a designer, even if you're not a CAD person, you get it, right? I mean, and each of us in our own way goes, oh yeah, I can imagine what that would be like. I can understand why. I didn't have to tell you all the words. I didn't have to tell you all the data about why CAD is more effective, more efficient, percentage increase in productivity. Yeah, the feeling is, damn, here comes some young snot-nosed kid going to tell me how to do my business with technology that I don't understand. What data does do, and there's a much longer thing, again, maybe for some other day, called the ladder of inference, but for the purposes of this evening, once we have an experience, we process it, we make meaning of it, we then look for data that supports that way of thinking. It's not objective. We start cherry picking for the data that goes, oh, okay, that is good. And I find all the data that says, okay, that's good. And I just conveniently tend to discount or literally not see the data that disagrees with the decision I made in my head based on the experience. So project managers, agilists, what stories are you telling? And I literally mean, what stories are you telling about why we're doing this, how we're going to do it? Many success stories of people that have made some progress, finding a testimonial of somebody. So I really do owe Monica, at least $10 or a beer. Monica, depending. But you know what? That unsolicited comment probably meant more than the entire bio that, Nitin read off for you, because yeah, blah, 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 blah. Okay. However, there's a person who said, I actually thought the prior presentation was helpful. Now I'm going to be more positively predisposed than if she said, oh, you poor devils. Sorry. He may be good looking, but boy, he's bad at producing, or however that might work. We process the resistance or our journey, our flow, our transitions through a change process in our own way and in our own time. So as, again, kind of linking back to some of the other things that we've been talking about, the trick is one size does not fit all. And we as project managers, I think, would be incredibly well served to realize that some people they were on board from the time we said, here's the idea. Some people will probably never be on board. Some are going to adopt quickly, right? And I think that's back into some of the PMP stuff. Our, early adopters, our quiet majority, our laggards, our resistors. So there's all that stuff in here embedded in this underneath. But can we, as management, as change agents, can we meet people where they are? Can we try to understand where they are in their transitional journey and support them appropriately as they move? So it takes us, I hope, out of judgment. I told you twice you should like it. Why don't you like it yet? And helps us be more empathetic. And actually, it gives us more flexibility, because then we go back to that prior slide and say, ooh, I'm getting feedback. Here's some more feedback. What experiment might I try now? I'm just glancing down at the comment. Yeah, about the carrots and sticks. It is overly simplistic for sure. And for people, it's better. I'm going to say it's better than nothing. So all of this is kind of nuance and continuum, and there's some science in it and probably just as much art. But at least the idea is to give you some language and frames that you can play with. And I am a huge fan of this last one, right? Because humans are complex, and that's where my writing goes, is to how complex adaptive systems work in organizational contexts. There are so many interlocking variables, interdependent variables. There are no guarantees when it comes to people and change. The best we can do is make an informed decision, try an experiment, and learn. I think somewhere, whichever page or chapter it's in the books, right, we talk about persist. Yep, it's working. Do more of it. Pivot. Woohoo, that ain't working at all. Let's try. What did we learn? Let's do something different. Or pause. Maybe the time isn't right for this. Maybe we just need to kind of move where there's a different energy, where we can either stretch, or maybe we just need to let the rubber band sit there for a little bit. Let it kind of regain some of its resiliency while we come over here to another area where we think we have more energy, more ability to impact, to move the project forward. Okay, going to glance down again. Any questions, comments, thumbs in the chat? I've stunned them into silence. Okay. I'm going to get to that because I want to make sure that we are on our time schedule here. So let me just jump through another Miro thing to this. Again, the trick here, and I think the opportunity is, if we can define it as feedback, if we can figure out what the root causes plural are of that behavior that we're seeing, then anyone, if we're looking at Mager pipe, if they're not able, you're not going to fix that. You need to put them in a role where they are able. If it's a training resource or a coaching, We know how to do that. Well, we just need to teach them or unteach the old habit and teach them a new one. If it's resources, quit asking them to do things that they can't do because we haven't given them the tools to do it. And think about what we're measuring. Because what you measure, again, that's that, David Kerr piece, folly of measuring A or expecting A when you measure B. So are we rewarding the person in that team who's doing less work? Are we tolerating that behavior? Because if so, what makes us think it's going to change? Oh, I don't know why I did that. So as we think about doing our experiments, an effort impact matrix, I want to show you just another tool. There are a variety of different kinds of experiments as we go to do the opposite, as we've identified resistance, as we're being curious, as we're being empathetic, saying what might move this person, this team, this group forward based on where they're at. And, there are some things that we can do quickly in that lower left-hand quadrant. They're easy to do. Yeah, they're not going to change the world. But you know what? It's going to help. Maybe it's just saying hello. Maybe it's giving people, leave. Why don't you just leave 10 minutes early today? It's been a good day. They're the things that we kind of sort of have to do, the high effort that may not have a lot of work to do. When it comes to figuring out resistance, that might be the work that we're doing in assessment. It's not changing anything yet, but if we don't figure out what's causing it, this might be just going in and saying, hey, how's it going? It might be doing a survey, might be doing a focus group, something, that helps us let people know you're listening and that you care. There are some short things that can make a big difference. And, where you can find those, hey, let's get you the training you need. Let's get you this additional piece of information that you're saying is missing. Let's get you a thing we can get you. And then the work that's going to take a lot of work with a major impact. And that'll be, the things that take time. And this extends over time. Project managers, right? This is what we do. We create structures recognizing that it's a journey and not a sprint. We're not going to fix resistance with an email, with an admonition. Come on, get on it. We're not going to fix it with, oh, I love you guys, just do better. It is a process, and we can be intentional about it, learning along the way. Again, with the recognition, I promise you, and I don't do that very often, they won't all work. There's too many things going on. Humans in groups are just too complex. And some of them will work. And they're all working. If you went, that was interesting. That didn't get me the result I expected. What can I, persist, pause, pivot? What should I try differently now? So let me leave you with this, which is just because I think it's a pretty cool slide. Across the top, if your people and your project, if you have a vision and they have the skills and they have the appropriate incentives, recognition, rewards, and they have the resources, and they actually have a plan, they can see the path to the end zone. If you have a supportive culture, what you get is successful change. Anytime one of those things is missing, you kind of increase the chances you will not get all the change that you want, or the kind of change that you want. Because if you don't have a vision, but you have everything else, it's like, okay, I know we're doing something, but where are we going with this? I don't understand. Like, well, you're making me change from Jira to agility. Okay, I got that, and I know you're doing a good job of it, but boy, you never told me why. If you don't give me the skills to do it, I understand, but you're not equipping me. You haven't given me the training, the skills, the coaching, the support that I need. Oh man, I want to do it, but I don't think I can. Skip the incentives, and yeah, you'll probably get change, but without some motivation, the rubber band's pretty slack. Right? Without the resources, you get frustration. Without an action plan, you get a lot of churn, but maybe not a lot of progress. And without the culture, you get a lot of sniping and false starts. So that said, that is kind of the information. Here's where you can find me. We'll make sure that the deck is available. These are the books that I've co-authored. And we're going to jump over here in the interest of time, and I'm going to turn it back to you, I guess, John.
Well, thank you very much, Larry, for that very interesting presentation.